Welcome to Pi People number 24, where we're going to be exploring the power of play. I'm Luke Thompson, and I'm a senior product designer here at Frog. I'll be emceeing this event, and we have some fantastic speakers for you this evening. If we could go to the next slide, that'd be super. Yeah, there we go. Dominic Wilcox is an artist, designer, and chief inventor at Little Inventors, which is a creative education organization that inspires imagination by taking children's amazing ideas seriously. Ben Senabathi is a product designer here at Frog. He's going to be talking about the importance of explorative play for children and how designers will have a responsibility to this in the future. And we have Katie Jackson and Alex Pittas from Abra Academy. They'll be telling us about their playful approach to workshops and facilitation that uses magic to unlock teams and problems. And I'm excited to say that they'll be leading us in a bit of audience participation as well, and teaching us a trick to leave with as well. You'll need post-it notes or post-it note sized piece of paper and a pen. And it'd be good to get those ready ahead of time. That'd be much appreciated. So I'm really pleased to welcome you all to the first Pi People of the year. And as many of you know, we've previously run these events as IDEON. For the first time tonight, we're running Pi People as a Frog event. So I will tell you a little bit about Frog and what it is that we do. If we could pop to the next slide, Kim, that'd be super. There we go. The union between IDEON and Frog means that we've got access to an even bigger global team than we had before, but with the same dependable capabilities, as well as a whole host of new experts in new exciting areas as well. And of course, we're now part of the incredible heritage in innovation that Frog has been building for 6 decades. Next slide, please. We're a global team made from designers, strategists, technologists, brand experts, behavior experts, and data scientists. And as you can see, we're all over. And we've worked with brilliant clients as well, like Apple, Barclays, 3, Disney, Audi, Oculus, AXA, and UNICEF, often using technology to empower people and explore our world. And if that all sounds good to you, then you'll be pleased to know that we're hiring and looking for new frogs to join the pond. There should be some roles up on screen shortly. We've got lots of things going, lots of things in the mix, and we're looking to get people on board. Here we go. So as you can see, we've got product designers, service designers, product managers, engagement managers, head of consumer strategy, senior strategy associates, senior program managers, senior motion designers, senior copywriter. As far as I can tell, that's pretty much everybody covered there. In future, these will be up on the frogdesign.com site, but as we go through this integration process, all of these roles can be found and applied for on the Capgemini website. Alternatively, you probably know someone who works here already, or can get hold of someone through LinkedIn. LinkedIn's a good place to get in touch with people that you know here, and a good way of getting in touch about these jobs as well. And also, I think the direct links to those roles are also going to be put into the chat now as well, so you can have a look at those. Yeah. So moving on to some housekeeping bits and pieces. We're broadcasting tonight using StreamYard. If we have any technical problems or things like that, just bear with us. Hopefully it'll all be smooth. But you can ask your questions and comments in Vimeo as we go along. You might be prompted to add channels or do different bits and pieces, but we really want to encourage you to comment and ask questions. We'd love for you to participate in this as well. And we'll be having questions, I think, after each speaker. You can follow us and tweet us and get updates and bits and pieces. And yeah, use the hashtags and things and whatnot in your socials when you're talking about us as well. That'd be great. So moving on to tonight. We started Pi People because we're a sociable bunch and we're curious to learn. So what will normally happen is we'll pick a topic, something that we've been talking about in the studio, something that we care about, and we'll get some brilliant speakers together and a keen crowd. This evening's theme is the power of play. And I think, like a lot of people, you know, the tyranny of the blank sheet of paper haunts most of us at some point or another. That paralyzing fear of getting things wrong can hold us back from doing our best work, finding the most interesting ideas, or simply having the most fun. And being willing to make mistakes and embrace the chance happy accidents that chaos brings is something we seem to grow out of. I can't wait to hear what our speakers have to say and what they have in store for us tonight, and remind us of how important play can be. So I'll hand over to the first of this evening's speakers, which is Dominic Wilcox. Hi,
Hello.
Dominic.
Hello there. Yeah, nice to be here. Taking children's ideas seriously and setting our imagination free. So if we go on to the first slide, just to introduce myself generally, I've spent most of my life trying to think of creative ideas. I guess I'm somewhere between an artist, a designer. I've never really got down to the bottom of what it is I do, but I do, come up with ideas. Looking around at the world, trying to make it more interesting. Here's some of the things I've made in the past. The top left, we have a stained glass driverless sleeper car of the future. For my vision for the future of transport for the year 2059, which was commissioned by Mini. And Mini's the original Mini came out in 1959, and I just thought, what will happen in 100 years? And I'm saying that driverless cars will be super safe, and we'll be able to just have a bed in there, and it can be made from any material. So I pushed my idea to the limits on that with a stained glass car. On the right of that, we've got, this was the world's first art exhibition for dogs. And I created and commissioned some artwork that dogs would really appreciate. I don't think many people have thought about the needs of dogs in the creative world. I think this first dog here is looking at a chicken drumstick forest, obviously dreaming of perhaps eating that tree. The bottom left one I just picked out. This is interesting to bring up in terms of play. And on Twitter, when I tweeted an idea, sometimes you can just come up with an idea and say it as a sentence. Not expecting anything to happen, but I tweeted that I wanted to challenge a 3D printer in a competition to make the same thing. This was at the time when 3D printers had just come out. And I just tweeted that, and then a curator called Beatrice Galilee saw it. And she said, Dominic, do you want to come over to Milan? I've got this exhibition and we could have this competition. So I went over and I competed against a 3D printing company, and we made a model of the Duomo, a big cathedral. I made a model out of clay, which I'd never made before. I think people thought I was an expert clay maker. Well, I wasn't. And the 3D printer made it. And I came out in like a rocky gown. So I pushed the idea as far as I can. Came out to rocky music, and we had a big crowd in this big department store. On the right of that, interesting about, hearing about, getting stuck, mental blocks with creativity. And you need that. Sometimes you need a kick yourself, kick your brain into gear to start freeing up that block. And so that actually happened to me, and I set myself a challenge to come up with 30 creative things every day, and then photograph it or video it and post it to my blog. It was variations on normal.com. And this, every day I was waking up in 6 a.m, having to think of an idea, having to buy it, having to make it, having to post it. And actually the pressure of time and short deadlines can really kick you out of your procrastination. And so I would actually recommend that if you're getting a bit stuck, to put a little early deadline. And so you'll start to make decisions quicker, and that will free up the more playful ideas that you're a little bit shy or reticent to do. You'll just go for it. So if we, and just one more thing I was just thinking about this subject of play, and how I've thought about in the past how creative thinking for me is very much like a game, like a board game, except the board is the whole world and all of the things on the world are all of the pieces on the game. And the challenge as a creative thinker is to apply my creative thinking abilities to look at these things in the world and transform them into something interesting or playful or surprising or just better. And so thinking of that, I think, puts my mind in the right position to be more creative. If we move on to the next slide. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I can do it now. Yeah, I forgot I could do that. Sometimes I'll draw my ideas, such as a hide and seek beginners level. And I think when what I like about this, about drawing things, is that it's the shortest distance between my imagination and your imagination. We make a connection, and when we share a playful idea with other people, for that moment, our minds come together, sharing this moment of connection and delight. And so creativity can bring us together for those moments, which I really enjoy. Next one. So for me, creativity is a state of mind. And in order to be more creative, we must take our minds to a place where the ideas flow. And I did this drawing. This is a typical day in our lives. This is going from day to night. And the line symbolizes at the beginning of the day, we do certain similar things. So we brush our teeth, we have a shower, we go to work. We're all following a very similar way of living in many ways. I know there's variations, but our minds are in a similar line, and we're under pressure. There's time limitation, so we grab little quick ideas. But really, we want to get into this position, which is where we're getting those bigger, more adventurous ideas that are off to the sides of that. And children do this very well. So I think a playful approach to creative thinking allows us to take our minds off the beaten track, away from the predictable, the unsurprising ideas, and into a place where ideas can thrive. And children have this natural ability. This is their mind, as opposed to the adult tendency of before that. For me, play is something. I think sometimes people could dismiss play as a bit of fun, just a thing you do and then you get back to work. While for me, play and a playful approach is a technique, is a method of finding and developing great ideas. So children have this wonderful natural ability. And I think as we grow older, our natural creative ability gets hidden, and it gets suppressed and limited. And it gets covered over by these layers of self-doubt and, not really wanting to share your crazier ideas in case people laugh at you or something like this. And we get all self-conscious. And so I really believe that our natural creativity of childhood is still within us. And it's just about revealing and peeling off these layers that are protecting us. And I came up with an idea to ask 450 children to think up invention ideas, just draw them down. They could be bonkers or practical. I asked local makers, manufacturers, to bring to life the most interesting ideas. And we had an exhibition of these brought to life children's invention ideas. This was an example. This is Wendy in a family scooter, instead of scooting around by herself, a bit boring. And this was developed by an advanced automotive company called AMAP, brought to life. This was Oliver. He said when he does a good thing, but he has no one to do a high five with, he'd like a high five machine. And this was brought to life by a Sunderland Fab Lab. They worked with Oliver. It's a collaboration project between the makers and the minds of the children and their free creativity and the skills of the makers coming together into one thing. Now this went viral, went around the world, and that was in 2015, 2016, and it developed. We started it as an ongoing organization that's still going now. It's called Little Inventors. We've got books out. We've got the website where we've got over 16,000 children's invention ideas. And what's interesting is we write personal feedback to each child uploading, and that is to build confidence, because confidence to be creative and to be playful with your ideas. We welcome the bonkers, because those bonkers ideas can lead to can start conversations, can lead to other interesting ideas. So building confidence is really important. This was an example of a more recent idea. Young boy here, he said, when you break your arm and you have a plaster cast, your muscle wastes away. So his idea was to put some electrical impulses inside the plaster cast. And then we sent that idea to the innovation unit in the NHS, who worked on the idea and developed their prototype. And they were really impressed with this idea. And this just comes from a fun, playful, creative workshop, asking the children to delve into their free imagination and come up with ideas. This one is Thomas, aged 8, and he worries a lot, as a lot of children do. And he came up with a worry shredder. And the worry shredder you put your worries into it, it shreds it, then it creates a message. So you can see, and I went into a primary school. We can play the video now. I went into the primary school. That's the creator there, and he's putting in his worry. He wrote it down on the yellow piece of paper.
When you are worried,
And
focus on the next 10 seconds only. Climbing mountains happen one step at a time. Thanks for shredding your worry. Please take a chocolate.
This was a wonderful idea, a playful idea that really connected with the children in a serious way. This little girl had a secret one. She didn't want to say what the worry was. So yes, we've done these things, and just to go back just over what sort of things can we learn from children's creative approach, which I believe we should. Taking a playful approach to idea generation can unlock more surprising ideas rather than going straight at it in a linear, sort of predictable way. Let ideas fly by resisting finding reasons why ideas can't work. That is the typical number one thing that adults do. They come up with 1,000,001 reasons why the idea isn't possible. So you need to resist that. We can learn that from children because they let their imagination go. And, either they don't know about or don't think about the possible difficulties. And so that allows them to think beyond where we think. Build your confidence and those you work with. Self-confidence is the most important thing, I think, to being creative. Support people to allow them to express their ideas, no matter how silly, no matter how unusual, and develop the confidence to step into the unknown, because ultimately creativity is about leaving the path of predictability and stepping into the unknown. And I hope that's been interesting a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Dominic. That was fantastic. If any of you've got any questions for Dominic, now's the time to ask. Please type them into Vimeo there, and they'll try and get back to me. In the meantime, I've got a couple of questions I'd love to ask as well. What kind of prompts are you using to get these inventions out of children? What are those workshops like, and how are you encouraging them with their thoughts?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I mean, we keep trying different methods, and the first project, that original one with the family scooter and the high five machine, that was very simple. So really, it was about, I did about 19 workshops in schools, and I would just set the feel in the room, which is a fun, creative, and sort of bonkers ideas are welcome. So I showed some of my ideas. So there's a positivity and energy in the room, and I think having a positive energy in the room, helps it sparks people's imagination. And so really there was no set subject matter. It was any idea you want, and they only had like half an hour to come up with an idea and draw it, and then we did a little bit of prototyping to make it as well. So it was very quick. It was in Sunderland, and we got such a variety of all sorts of ideas. There was 450 children did it. We picked out about 25. The two that I showed actually ended up in the Victoria and Albert Museum. Talk about taking children's ideas seriously. That's pretty far. But now with Little Inventors, we pick specific subjects. So we'll do things like asking the children to invent a character. And if you imagine a character and what do they like, what do they not like, and you build that up in your imagination, you can then invent for that character, for example. Or we do on different subjects like energy or food waste or space. So we try in all different types of things. And I actually also have done these workshops with adults, sort of thinking like a child.
And how do they compare?
It's interesting, we did teenagers, and I at first, and I thought, well, maybe the teenagers will be a little bit less creative, but actually, and then the adults. We went to the United Nations on a child's rights event, did it with a very serious subject there, and all it is allowing the participants, the people, whatever age, to release their inbuilt creativity that they had since childhood. And when you set the tone correctly and you show that wild, crazy ideas are welcome, and it's a bit of fun and we have a laugh and a joke, suddenly everybody relaxes and the adults start coming up with great ideas that are free and open and excellent. Yeah.
I mean, I love your role title of Chief Inventor is perhaps the best title ever, and perhaps that's what brings out that sort of the adventurous side of folk. I'm going to try and see if folk have got some questions. One of the questions that's come through here is, I love the physical aspect of the ideas you shared. Do you see that as an important part of play?
Well, no, I mean, I enjoy drawing. For me, I always think about creative thinking. And when I come up with an idea, which I do that in my sketchbook normally, then I'll think, is this an idea that can be communicated in drawing, which is very direct, and drawing in a little sentence, and what does it gain from being brought to life? So that, for example, the car with the glass car gains a value of visual. It has a visual power. No matter how I could draw that car, you could understand the idea, but it gains a visual interest, and it's a beautiful thing. And beauty comes into it, which I actually, when I first started out, I was a bit cynical about beauty, thinking, oh, it's very superficial. But actually, it's a powerful thing that can be used, to communicate ideas and bring them to life and cut through. So, but I think, on creating, I think making prototypes with your hands, making a model out of cardboard, visualizing it opens up another door in your mind to finding ideas, rather than just being on the computer or on your sketchbook, but like 3-dimensionalizing your ideas really helps you think.
Yeah, that's great. Another question here is, how can we curb adults' impulse to say how it won't work?
Yeah.
I guess it's maybe not just adults. I mean, just people's impulses to say how things won't work, right? That's often a natural thing, especially clients.
It is. It's a safety net. It's a natural instinct that we all have. Even myself, I can feel it. I can feel it pulling me towards that's impossible or difficult. It's too difficult. Or it can't be done because of this. And you just have. Like with the car, I had to convince people it was possible. It was possible. I did some GPS shoes. The worker with a shoemaker said it's not possible. I can't do it, but we could do it. So 9 times out of 10, they're always completely wrong. And so yes, I think personally you have to put that to one side, try to be positive, keep the optimism, because the only way you're going to create surprising, unusual things that haven't been done before is to be brave and to take a leap into that unknown. And actually, what you'll find is you can always find a way around a potential problem. So someone can come up with a reason why you can't do it, but that actually stimulates a way to get around that issue. You just need to put them to one side for as long as you can, at least.
Yeah, that sounds really good. Well, one last question, and then I think we'll wrap it up there for the questions. How do you open up space for play in a digital product team? What are the best moments for it? So maybe we don't have to focus specifically on digital product stuff, on team stuff like that. But if you're not doing it in a physical way, how can you encourage people to get playful? Or I mean, as we were talking about a little bit before this this event, it's quite difficult in the digital domain sometimes to kind of get a playful vibe going, you know, or something like that. Have you any experience with that, and what have you found that's worked in the past?
I've got experience of finding it difficult. I think even coming up with ideas on a computer, I find that very difficult, very limited. It's almost like it's a window protecting me from the creativity. So I can only say to advise to get off the computer, because ultimately the digital creative experience is an idea that can be formed and planned away from the computer. The computer can be the last part of the jigsaw puzzle. It's just like me coming up with an idea and going to a glassmaker, or, you know, and we work in the glassmaker. The glassmaker has to go through the certain process. But I think on the creative side, I would say to try and create, you know, you can do a thing like ask everybody in the room to come up with the worst ideas they've got on the subject, and that frees people's minds up. I would try to just stay away from the computer as much as possible in the early stages. A playful approach to having fun around the ideas, even when it's a serious thing. It's still a method of getting around the predictable outcomes. Yes, so I suppose it's a difficult question, but I'd say get off the computer to be more creative on the computer.
I think that's very good advice for most people working in digital stuff. Thank you so much for your talk, and thank you for sharing your work. I can't wait to see what the little inventors get up to next.
Thank you very much.
Nice one, thank you. So now I will pass over to Ben for who's our next speaker.
Awesome. Thanks, Luke. Am I audible? Just checking. Okay. Right. Hello, everyone. So first of all, a huge thanks to Kim and the Frog team to actually organize this. And thanks for attending this 24th episode of Pi People. I'm personally waiting to actually learn quite a few bit of magic tricks. But hey, everyone's here for the tricks, I know. But yeah, let's get on to it. I'm Ben, a product designer at Frog. We've actually been working on quite a few cool projects. And I actually thought I might share some interesting learnings that we've actually found out. So let's get started. What's this? Yep. So what's this whole presentation about? It's about three main components that we'll be talking about today, which is what and why behind explorative play and the current state of explorative play and the possible futures and the different implications surrounding it. So here, just waiting on the slides to load. Yep. So yeah, why not? We'll just watch the funny video first. So we have this. Okay. I see there's quite a bit of delay, but we have this little girl just trying to actually shovel a bit of snow and not really sure what she's trying to do, but she ends up falling in a really funny manner. So that's actually explorative play in a nutshell. You just try different things. You try things without really having an end goal, or most of the times it's more of an arbitrary end goal. But multiple researchers actually said that these types of explorative play are actually a sandbox experience that children help to simulate the real world when they turn to adults. So the way you actually play is actually something that is going to help you grow. And it also enhances cognitive, social, and emotional skills in children. And in addition to these core aspects, I'm just waiting on slides to load. Yep. So studies have also shown that these experiences foster childhood creativity, growth, and resilience. And we can see in this slide as well, this little kid just looks at his sister doing a cartwheel and tries to emulate it, but ends up in a really funny way. We could all see that. So what's really happening here? Let's just break down these two videos over here. In her book, Lisa Barrett, the psychologist, actually says that 90% of our brain is actually running on internal simulation, and the rest 10% of input from external world is what the brain is using to test these simulations and adapt itself. So whenever these children are doing something that looks so funny to us, they're actually testing their internal simulation of the external world. So when kids are doing this, they're trying to like piece together new information, new fragments of information. So the three main processes here are exploration, connection, and consolidation. You go through these bits and fragments, you form your novel thoughts, and therefore you have these new mental models when you actually turn to adults. And a few studies from the 90s actually show us that in a simple graph where the rate of play actually decreases as you grow up, as you age, but especially in humans, we still kind of show some signs of being playful. So the reduction is primarily hypothesized to be a social, cultural factors, which Dominic actually explained it very well about the suppression of creativity and exploration in play, and become actually more goal-oriented. As you can see, the pink line is kind of like defining this goal mindset that we kind of bring, and we lose out this explorative, creative play mindset. But as we grow up, also something else happens, that we kind of our brain still indulges in more of explorative play, especially when we dream. So during the REM phase, our brain actually takes in these fragments of information from different sources, bundles them together, and gives us these interesting patterns that we might not have during our waking period. So if you don't actually write down your dreams, I suggest you do, because there have been interesting human achievements across literature and technology which actually came from our dreams, and more of these explorative dreams where we actually form these novel ideas. Now let's get back to play and what's happening in today's world. So in today's world, we have actually multiple ways to actually entertain our children these days, and the most prevalent of them are passive entertainment, especially social media and on-demand video and stuff. So that's all good, but the problem is research has actually shown that we learn poorly when we actually do it through a screen. Human beings are actually indeed creatures of action more than just observation, which accounts for almost a 50% decrement in learning and growth when it's done via screen. So what about open world gaming in digital platforms? Surely they must be helping us in some way, right? Surely they're interactive, they're open world, they're explorative. Can they replace physical explorative play? So there's actually clearly a huge uptake in especially mobile gaming, first of all, with Nintendo Switch consoles and portable gaming consoles. What's more also interesting is that kids, even as young as 2 years old, are getting these forms of explorative digital games because they're curated to them. While not replacing external play completely, screen time is gradually taking precedence even among toddlers. And the shocking stat around like 38% rise in mobile gaming even from age 2. As they grow up at around 5 to 16-year-old, they're still part of this millions of player community these days, where platforms like Roblox and Minecraft, which emphasizes these open world explorative gameplay, which is completely digital. You meet new friends, you meet new people, and Minecraft actually has 150 million players, and which most of them are children. So the way that you actually learn life skills is changing from physical interactive play to these digital forms. So is this an alternative to explorative play in real life? Is this a viable alternative? And the quick answer to that question would be a definite no. We actually need to interact with the world in 3 dimension using all of our core senses to get this benefits of explorative play that we have been discussing. So what does this actually mean for the future? What's next? What's going to be coming up? And yeah, I suggest every one of us put on our creative hats and let's dive deep into this. So in 2021, the Oculus Quest, the headset, actually outsold the Xbox Series, which clearly shows that consumer preferences are slowly moving towards extended reality platforms more and more. And if we come over to the next few years, especially for early and mid childhood, this whole phenomenon of digital explorative play has grown so much that we're thinking about building these micro societies within them. Adidas and Nike have already partnered with certain brands, and not only you can play in these worlds in 3D, but also bring on these real world simulations, transactions. You could trade, you could sell, you could buy. Is this what microtransaction in gaming especially is going to be evolving to? Even bigger brands like Disney and Meta have actually implemented these strategies for the metaverse. How it's going to turn out remains to be seen, but as more and more children are actually opting out into these platforms, we are already seeing glimpses of this in today's games, where children have completely replaced social media as one form of communication with online gaming. Also, Riot Games research has actually shown that children behave especially really poorly online, especially in games when they have no self-monitoring mechanisms in place. So what do these new technologies actually mean for explorative play and for kids? Now, we do have some examples that have popped up in recent months. So we have some platforms like Blocktopia and Decentraland that are built on the open metaverse and promises next generation open world explorative gameplay. They assert that they're actually going to be better than the games that we are familiar with today using next generation technologies. But the problem remains, who are actually going to be governing these technologies? Who are actually going to be governing these platforms? Is this the future of explorative fun play? Is this going to replace this physicality of explorative play? And anonymity levels during online gaming has actually shown to influence toxic behavior in kids. The more anonymous you are, the more pseudo-anonymous you are in these platforms, the more toxic that Riot Games study has actually found out. And I actually want to turn this whole presentation into 3 important questions to end with. So as more and more of explorative play, especially for children turning virtual, what would the long-term effects be? What can we expect in the upcoming years? And how can virtual worlds be actually made to carry on the benefits? How can they be made to carry on the benefits of these physical explorative play that we are seeing so often? And the last and the most important thing for creatives, I would ask, as creatives, we are going to be at the forefront of crafting these products that define these explorative play. What are we going to do? What do we need to know to get there? And those are the 3 questions that I would like leave everyone to actually think about. And yep, that's me. As always, thanks for listening. And I'm keen. Are there any questions?
Hi, Ben. Thanks so much. That was really, really interesting. Yeah, as a dad to a 2-year-old, I'm watching all of that stuff with anxious anticipation about what he's going to be into in the future. You know, like what is in 10 years' time, what's going to be the scene? Because if it's the metaverse now, I can't even imagine what's going to be happening in a decade. But I mean, right now, I mean, for your money, what's missing from these online environments that would make them be viable alternatives to kind of playgrounds, as it were? Do we need to be adding smell and taste into these things to be able to use these core senses that you were talking about in kind of online scenarios? What's missing from them, and how could we make them better?
Yeah, I think that's an excellent question. I think the problem is also we still don't know the long-term effects that this shift to digital explorative play has caused, because these children are yet to grow up. And so in that case, when we don't have the research data, we don't really know if we should be continuing doing this, or we should try to shift childhood behavior. The American Association of Pediatrics is actually trying to do this. They're trying to give certain amount of hours every single day for physical interactive play and not really interact with media. So I think that question is definitely a challenging one. The more immersive you come up with, maybe adding stuff like the sensation of touch, sensation of smell, makes it more immersive. But is that the really right thing to do? Is that the way that we want to like take it forward? And I think that's up to us designers, especially. So yeah.
Yeah, nice one. You had a slide up early on there about play versus goals, or well, it wasn't about play versus goals, but it was about play and goals, and there was a graph. Do you think that the two are sort of mutually exclusive? This idea of play as a process and goals and results and stuff. Yeah, I suppose another way of asking it would be, in order to be more playful, should we be less goal oriented?
I think that's a really good question. And no, they're not mutually exclusive. But what we're really seeing is this reduction in the rate of playfulness, being playful, being explorative in our senses. And one of the factors is actually being more goal oriented. You know exactly what you want when you start becoming an adult. You move towards certain things. You don't like to go, if you're commuting from point A to point B, you just don't try to like explore and do stuff, but you know exactly what you want to do. So that's where this goal mindset kind of like hinders your whole explorative nature. And that's pretty much it. But no, they're not mutually exclusive in any way, and they can vary based on so many different factors as well.
Okay, nice one. Well, we'll get some questions through here. Keep them coming. So one of the questions here is, how do we balance teaching children how to engage with digital worlds, since so much of the socialization takes place there, while also ensuring they connect with physical play and physical exploring? I guess it's quite easy to demonize these, screen time or time spent in these environments and games. And actually, the reality is they are increasingly important in the world, right? How do you balance those things?
I think that's a really good question, because even though the more you educate parents to actually allow their children to interact physically in more explorative play, but once they go off to the schools and meet their friends, where they're going to be spending so much of their day-to-day life with, and it's all back to square one because their friends are all doing it. So it's again becoming a negative feedback loop in the sense. And I feel it's just a personal opinion in this case, but it's more like, how do we also make the contextual factors like schools and households like become really aware of the negative effects? And it should be a holistic thing, I feel, and not just from the parental side, but also from schools, from the teachers and stuff like that. Is one way we could maybe tackle this. But yeah, that's a really good question.
Another question here is around accessibility. So regarding accessibility, in most developing countries, this tech is mostly out of reach for the general population. How might we think of tools that aren't exclusive? Maybe something that works for VR and regular play?
Okay, this is a tricky one. Can you just repeat that question again? I kind of left it up.
Yeah. So regarding accessibility, in most developing countries, this tech is mostly out of reach for the general population. How might we think of tools that aren't exclusive? So maybe something that works for VR and regular play at the same time. Do you know, are there designs, experiences, games that bridge the two really well? Between VR and kind of traditional play, let's say, or is it an exclusively sort of, you have to, if you haven't got the tech, you can't get involved sort of situation?
Yeah. Okay, so I think what we're really thinking about is that VR and AR is still a future technology, is what we're guessing, but I don't think so actually, because the recent developments in graphic technologies and these um, insanely immersive experiences are actually falling down in prices. So if you remember, I had a slide where the VR Oculus Quest actually outsold the Xbox series last year, and consumers are actually starting to prefer virtual these three-dimensional platforms because they are becoming more and more affordable as years go by. And it's really a matter of maybe 5 to 10 years where it becomes so much affordable as an everyday laptop kind of thing. But is that the way that we need to go is what we need to think about, I would say. But yeah, it's definitely getting there.
And a final question here before we move on. So, someone here is wondering about how this decrease in creativity in youth will affect creative businesses in the next, let's say, 5 or 10 years or so. You know, will it, if people are being less creative because they're being less playful when they're in these environments, how's that going to impact on, you know, the creative industries, agencies like ours?
Yeah, I think one aspect would that be it innovation could actually be hindered and become more structured in a manner. You don't have So we have this thing called horizontal innovation and vertical innovation. And horizontal innovation occurs when things just get iterated based on what we already know, based on what we already learned about. But vertical innovation is where this monumental shift happens. So this form of vertical innovation could seriously be hindered if the less creative and less freedom that creative businesses actually get. So I think that's one of the places where that's definitely an impact that could be seen in the future, in the upcoming years, I would say. I think Peter Thiel, co-founder of PayPal, if I remember correctly, and he has actually discussed about this. So uh, yeah, if you want to know more about this, I would definitely suggest reading the book Zero to One, where it talks about the horizontal and the vertical innovation strategies.
Nice one. Something for the reading list there.
Awesome.
Nice. Well, thanks ever so much, Ben. That was really interesting. Yeah, I look forward to seeing where things are going and how we can remain playful as technology advances.
Amazing. Thanks, Luke.
No worries. Okay, and I'll pass you over to Katie.
Hi, thanks, Luke. Oh, there I am. Thanks, Luke, and thanks to the Frog and the team for inviting us here today. So I'm the Chief of WoW and co-founder at Abacademy, and I'm here with our head magician, Alex, and we're going to talk a little bit about how we spark play and wonder in workplaces and some ideas for how you can also do that too at work. But I'm going to start by telling you that last week I was chased by a shark, but I'm going to come back to that a little bit later. Today is all about play. I wouldn't say I'm an expert on play, but I would say that it's been there all my life. I feel somewhat privileged to say that I've never felt like I had to leave play behind, to have always have had a safe space and encouragement to play. This is indoor jousting, if you ever fancy doing it. You could even say that play was in my blood. So my dad worked for a company that made play equipment and designed playgrounds. And later, I actually helped him to design some of those playgrounds. But I also learned a little bit of play through that, a bit about play through that. That playgrounds and play equipment shouldn't be too prescriptive. That the best parts or the best equipment sparks many uses and sparks kind of creative use, and also that kids don't really do what you expect them to do. Kids don't just go down the slide, they climb up the slide and they climb under the slide, and they're not restricted to some idea of what you can or shouldn't do, a bit like what Dominic was talking about earlier. But I would say also I sometimes forget to play and forget to wonder, and I'm guilty of being that person who jumps to reasons why things can't be. And I think as adults, we often don't play, certainly not unbridled free play, making up new rules and telling stories. Thankfully, though, I would say I'm still very privileged to work for a company where people remind me to play every day. This is one of our, let me just move my head above the name there. This is one of our morning meetings. This is not what happens at every morning meeting, but we just decided to riff on an idea and see what fun we could have in Zoom. And as a company, we have a strong belief that play is important at work. Fun is a positive emotion, and positive emotions broaden our thinking. They make us more creative and able to see new possibilities. Stress, on the other hand, and other negative emotions focus us in on the details. And during play, we create empathy, and it teaches us how to do things collaboratively, to improvise and to stay in the moment. But when it comes to learning as well, fun is also a key ingredient. Fun and joyous moments release dopamine, which does many positive things, including giving you the courage to take more risks, and it helps us to encode and recall new information, which is super important when it comes to learning. Which takes me to what we do at Abracademy. And at Abracademy, we believe that the world needs more magic, not just rabbits in hats or secrets and mysteries, but real magic. Our quest is to unleash the magic of people. We're experts in creating engaging employee experiences. We combine magic with psychology and with meaningful play to create memorable learning experiences that open your mind to new possibilities, shift mindsets, and build soft skills. When we at Abracademy, we give people magical props or we show magical effects, we're almost guaranteed to show you something or allow you to experience something that you've never done before, which instantly puts you in that playful mood. There are no preconceived notions of how you should play with our magic light props, for example, and it brings everyone down to the same level. Your boss doesn't know how to do this either. And our sessions are designed so that the magic and the magical spaces that we explore are deeply connected to the topic that the session itself centers around. Now you get a bit of a flavor here of what we do, but right now I'm gonna pass you over to my colleague Alex, who's gonna actually show you something. And if Kim in the background, you could spotlight Alex and bring.
All right, thanks for that, Katie. So yeah, just quick intro. I'm Alex from Abracademy. My role is I'm the head magician at Abracademy. So I'm going to go straight into it. What I'd like to do is actually share a story from my own childhood. So when I was around 10 years old, I used to watch a lot of TV and magic shows especially. And we had, back in the day, if anyone remembers, Paul Daniels' show. We also watched people like David Copperfield. And me and my uncle was obsessed with magic. And all of a sudden, during this period, a young man called Uri Geller appeared on the scene. And Uri Geller was this young man who claimed he had real psychic powers and real magical powers. He didn't say he was a magician. He said he had real superpowers. And what he would do is demonstrations of spoon bending, any objects he would move with the power of his mind or make them bend. So that was like, igniting a real sort of fire inside me and my uncle. And my uncle went on a quest to find out how to do this. One afternoon, and this is a true story, he came around with a book on telekinesis. And it was all about looking at an object. So we'd put a glass of water on the table or a heavy object or even a stone. And it was about just staring at that object and trying to make it move with your mind. And what we learned was by thinking about it and trying to push it, it wouldn't move. You had to imagine the thing already moving towards you. Anyway, we sat there for hours just staring at things and nothing would happen. And weeks, probably months went by until one day he said, Alex, I've found the solution. Paper is the best thing to use for that because it's very lightweight, it's easy to begin with, and you also need some magic string. So he showed me this. So he drew on this piece of paper here, 2 bits of paper, and he drew this little sort of spoon and fork. And let's start with the spoon. Now, what he said was you need that magic string. So he had this invisible string, and he said it's an imagination string. This is from my imagination. But if I treat it like a real piece of string, like an imaginary thread, it can make things move. So he wrapped it around the spoon. Now watch the spoon. Yeah, he's began to pull, and ever so slowly it started to move. Just a bit more like this, okay? Now I came up and just pretended to cut the thread, and boom, it just jumps back up again. Now, practicing this, you don't need the thread, you don't need the string. What you need is just the concentration and the belief that you can make the objects move and bend. And pulling it back. And all I had to do now was just push and push upwards, and it would move and bend. If I wanted to, I mean, after I got really good at this, you can just make them both move. Come on, pull and pull, pull, come on. And the spell is broken. And for now, I'll hand back to Katie.
Thanks, Alex. And you can, in the chat, you can tell us how that made you feel. We'd love to hear about it. That's just a little example to illustrate what we do, which is we ignite wonder. Magic as a thing, it literally reveals how our brain works. Magic is the emotion caused by someone or something that attacks our intellect. Those emotions that you experience, like mind blown, awe, excitement, happiness, that's all when we don't have the answers. When we've seen or experienced something where we have no logical solution. And what this distills down to is wonder. Wonder is at the core of what we do at Abracademy, and it's when awe meets curiosity. It automatically takes you back to that childlike state. Experiencing everything for the first time when you don't have an answer, you're in a state of wow. This quote from Gustav Kuhn, who we sometimes collaborate with, who runs a magic lab at Goldsmiths. He says, experiencing magic connects us with a deep-rooted adaptive cognitive process that encourages us to keep learning about the world and seeing it from new angles. And we combine this with play, which helps us to bring people together, to laugh, to have fun, and to get people when they're in that state of wonder to maybe explore an idea that they haven't explored before, or that they wouldn't do in a traditional setting. And what do we actually do with these magical powers that we have? We help teams and companies with the challenges that they face. How can we be more creative, be better communicators? How can we open our minds to new perspectives, face change, be better leaders, or overcome our biases, for example? We do this through workshops, programs, bite-sized learning, and offsites. But if you really want to know about that, you can always get in touch with us. The impact of that is memorable learning. Over the last 3 or 4 years, we've impacted around 10,000 people, bringing a learning experience that have these extra elements of joy, play, and magic, which helps participants incorporate concepts easier. People come back to us 2 or 3 years later because they remember what we did. You may be in charge of training yourself or have experienced some kind of training in the past that was measured on how relevant it was to your work. But what about measuring the joy and wonder that was created? Now, I started this story by telling you last week I was chased by a shark. And I hope I sparked your curiosity a bit there. And I hope I got you wondering, maybe you imagined the different ways that that could have happened. I wasn't anywhere near the sea. I was actually looking after my partner's 3-year-old nephew. And out of nowhere, he exclaimed, "Oh no, a shark." And we both ran away. And we spent the afternoon swimming away and running from the shark, searching for the shark through binoculars and throwing beach balls at the shark. And if I had just been visiting my partner's parents and his nephew hasn't been there, I don't really think I would have prompted or found myself running away from a shark or prompted a game of throwing beach balls. Sometimes I think we need a little bit of prompting as adults to play. We need an excuse, but once we're in, we can get fully engaged. So I want to leave you with 5 ideas from our team on how you can spark some wonder and play with your team tomorrow. So number 1, and I recommend you screenshot these so that you can pull them back later for reference. You could ritualize or gamify something important to your team. So an important moment that happens weekly or monthly, perhaps. Make up a unique ritual that you will do to mark that moment and be playful with it. Go on a wonder walk, step away from your screen, go outside in your respective areas, but stay connected with Zoom or WhatsApp call, for example, and explore like you've never seen it before. Or you could book a wonder walk with us on our team. Adventure stand-up. You have a morning meeting, a stand-up meeting. Why not describe yesterday's work as an adventure? What happened? Was there a hero, a foe? How did you overcome it? Can you bring out props and characters? And approach your next problem as if you were 7 years old. Studies show that if you actively choose to approach things as a child, you will be more creative. What if you climbed up that slide tomorrow instead of sliding down it? And explore that sort of natural creativity that Dominic talked about. Or you could perform magic. So play and create your own version of the trick that Alex showed earlier. And in a second, I'm going to pass back to Alex to teach you that trick if you have a Post-it note and a pen. But I'll just finish by saying you can follow everything that Abracademy does on LinkedIn, and you can get in touch with us and find out more about what we do. And I'll pass over to Alex to teach you the trick.
Okay, thanks, Katie. So the moment has come. So I hope you're all ready for this. What you're going to need is a Post-it note or a piece of paper the size of a Post-it note and a pen. You don't need to actually draw anything yet. I'm going to walk you through the steps. I like to call the teaching, I like to break it into two parts. One is what I call the mechanics of the trick. So you're going to learn how the actual thing works, the mechanics of it, and then we'll talk about quickly about presentation. Just very quickly, it's such an easy trick to do, which really allows you to work on your presentation, have fun with performance. I did it last year for a kids' Halloween themed party on Zoom. We had dancing ghosts. So there was music going, and they created these dancing ghosts, and at the end the ghosts took a little bow. Come on, bow guys, thank you, big round of applause. So you're only limited by your imaginations, but let's crack on with how you do the trick. So the mechanics of the trick: if you have a Post-it note, I found actually by doing it with Post-it notes, it's the best kind of paper, it's the right sort of thickness. So you have the sticky part here. What you want to do first is obviously you're going to prepare your little magical piece of paper before you show anybody. So where it's sticky, you want to tear off the sticky part. Now I just find where it is, where the stickiness is. I'll hold it up like this and do it nice and slowly so I can show you. I'm going to get rid of this here. Doesn't have to be perfect. This is the sticky part now. I get rid of that. I don't need that bit. Now here, I'm going to create a small little column here. And again, it doesn't matter how wide you want it. I always, and you want to tear. When you tear, you want to tear down about 3/4 of the way. I'll stop there so you can see that. Okay. Now you want to move along and tear another one. Try to keep them roughly the same sort of size, but you want to aim for the end. So this side here is going to match this side. Or should I say this side here is going to match this side here. So I move along to here. And again, you don't have to be perfect, but you want to tear it down so they're the same sort of height and length. I hope that's kind of clear. So you end up now, if you would turn it like this, it looks like a kind of an E, the letter E. So you have this middle part here. Now this part here doesn't get seen throughout the trick. So now I'm going to fold this towards me like this. I'm going to bend it down. I'm going to put in a crease. So this is what you have right now. If I turn it around, this is what you see. Now you don't want your audience to see this little flap here. So right at the edge here at the bottom, so the edge of the natural straight edge of the post-it note is where you want to tear along. So I would tear along like this. So now I'm going to show, this is the front view. This is what the audience will see, like this. And now I'm going to show you my view. My view is this here. Now, if I turn it to the side, you should be able to see it a bit better. It's a little bit dark in here. But now you have this kind of little flap hidden behind the front part. This is your secret little mechanism that creates the movement in the paper. It creates the telekinesis, the magical part. So you're going to hold on to this. So your thumb is going to sit on that middle part here like this. And your finger's just holding everything. So my thumb's just like this. I'm going to show you now everything from an exposed view as if there was a camera here. And these fingers are going to represent what my thumb would be doing. So just basically you're pulling to one side the paper. So you're just literally pulling on the tab downwards. And with practice, you can control which side moves first. But just by doing this, you'll see that either one or both will start moving. If I do it on the ones that I prepared earlier with the fork. So just by sliding my fingers, my thumb, it's my thumb that's doing the work. If I'm holding it like this, my thumb is not going straight down, it's moving to the side. So it's moving, my thumb now is moving towards my left. I could probably do it with my finger to show you what's happening behind the scenes. I'll do it with my fingers. I'm just doing this. Just literally like as if you're rubbing your fingers together. You can just do it nice and slowly to create the movement there. And you reverse. It goes back up. It's just pulling it and then slowly going forwards. So in essence, your fingers are just doing this movement. Backwards and forwards. So with practice, if I start with a spoon, you can create this illusion of it moving, going forwards. Now I would start by, instead of pulling backwards, I'll move my thumb forward. So I'll show you what I mean. I'm just change the direction of the way I move. And you should, if I do it like this, you should be able to see. Hard to do it with my fingers here. The other side move. So I do it with my thumb, it's easier. Here we go, just like that. So just by doing it very gently, you have more control over the paper. So you go from one side, just by doing this movement, and then the other side. And there we go. Now, to get them both to move, I would now adjust the position. So from going like this, I will now hold it this way. So my thumb's in the middle. And now you pull straight down with the thumb. So the thumb's going to go straight down on that little tab, and they both move. Again, you reverse the process, go push upwards. It's just down and up. So that's the mechanics of the trick. Now, for the trick to look magical, this is where your storytelling comes into play and also your acting skills. So I like to give the magic a tool to happen. So that's why magicians traditionally use like a magic wand for the magic to happen. In this case, the magic wand here is the imaginary piece of thread, the invisible string. So as you pull, you're going to time that with the movement. So you pull ever so slightly, okay? Now, when you get really good at this stage here, you can ask somebody, you can pull it taut, right? And you're really looking at it as well. Use your eyes to convey the reality of it being there. So you see it there, you pull it taut. You can ask someone to come along and just use their fingers to pretend to cut it. And as they do this, your thumb now is just going to push forward. So I'll just go back from the start. You pull it like this. I just, hey, can you just cut here? Now they come with their fingers, and as soon as they cut, you just go back up again. So you can have a lot of fun with that. So like I said in the beginning, you're only limited by your imagination. You can draw whatever you like here. And I really encourage you to practice this and try this at work tomorrow. Give it a go. Try it at work. Create a story around anything that you want to create around. And it's a lot of fun. And I think that would conclude the teaching of this trick. So have fun with it. Take a bit of practice, and back to Luke.
Thank you so much, both of you. That was fantastic. I've got it going on here.
Yes, nice one.
Perfect.
That's it.
It's a nicer drawing than mine, yeah.
Would you mind cutting the string for me? Hey!
Yeah.
I think my spoon needs some work though. That was really great. Thank you both so much.
Sure.
I've got a couple of questions before I assume slew of questions is going to come in at some stage, and people know now to ask some questions. With both of you, I mean, this question is for both of you. How did you start this? I mean, I guess getting into magic might have happened when you were younger, but how did like getting this sort of business organization together start? I mean, were you just doing magic in a workshop one day and then it sort of clicked, or how did it happen?
It's kind of a combination of different minds coming together, I think, really. So myself and Alex are both co-founders alongside our other colleague Rubens, and Alex has been a magician for many years.
Hundreds of years.
Hundreds of years. Rubens was a creative director in marketing agencies, and I was a product designer. Used to be at iDean. And Rubens and Alex connected, and Rubens asked Alex, what, if you could do anything, what would it be? And he said, start a magic school, a real one. And I think that's really the point that the idea was at when Rubens came to me and he said, I've got this idea, it's quite interesting. Do you want to meet this guy, Alex? It's about a magic school. I was like, yeah, count me in. And we evolved from what started as teaching kids and seeing the effect magic had on kids' kind of self-confidence, essentially. Like, it wasn't just about the magic, it was about all the things that came with the magic. And with our background as well, being in marketing and creative agencies, we also saw that we could bring that to adults too. And over the last 3 or 4 years, we've been developing what that looks like to really connect magic and sort of soft skills training, essentially, and other experiences that you have with your team.
Yeah, brilliant. The slide, Katie, that you had up about the playground reminded me of this idea that we're all authors, or at least co-authors of our own experiences to some extent, right? You can't change how I view the world, et cetera, et cetera. I think quite often in digital work that kind of credit isn't necessarily given to the user, and we're often trying to funnel them into a specific way of doing something, or a specific, buy something specific or produce some sort of specific behavior. But how do you think we could leave more room for creative use within digital products?
Ooh, big question. Um,
I'll find some easier ones to come up after this.
yeah, interesting. I mean, that feels like a product designy question. Good question. I mean, I think when we think of like magical things and products, we think about like, oh, it feels like it's not there, etc. But if we think maybe about play and products, I think it's about being able to make choices in the experience. Like my choice to, like I was talking about, do you go down the slide? Do you climb up the slide? Or do you like hang under the slide or do something completely different? How do you allow for that like free roaming in products? But I mean, it's not unusual, right, to find out that people are using products in ways that you absolutely did not expect.
Yeah,
when you actually go to do that user testing and you find out that no, they're holding it upside down. Like
perhaps when we get to that user testing stage and someone's using something quote unquote incorrectly, maybe we should, think twice about how wrong that may or may not be, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was just going to add there, going back to what Dominic said, just very quickly, that he mentioned that, jumping into a void of that. I think personally, I think my own, from what I've worked with the kids, is they don't necessarily know how something is made or how it functions. Therefore, there's no blockage there as to how they should use it or create it. They just go with whatever seems to make sense to them. So I think that's what perhaps holds us back, is when we know how something works. That's why we add on we can't do this because it won't work like that. So we already create the problem before we even look at the possibility, because we know the limitations. But I don't think kids have that roof of limitation, not necessary for everything. So there's a lot more freedom there, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, those limitations certainly shape how we experience the world and interact with it, right? So we've got some questions here. So I guess this is with regards to your workshops and things. Is an open mind a prerequisite to being awed? I have a lot of cynical people in my team that would roll their eyes. I think that's a great question.
Yeah, I consider myself a cynical person as well, and I think that is also why we work really hard to make the experiences work, because I want to make sure that it makes sense. But I think you will always get cynical people, and regardless whether there's magic or play in your training or your experiences or not, I think those are still, my assumption is that those are still the same people who would be resistant to the training anyway, whether you bring the play or the magic or not. However, even if someone is cynical or maybe just less open about how wowed they are when they react to magic, doesn't mean that you haven't kickstarted the process in their brain. It doesn't mean that they're not sitting there still wondering how it was actually done.
Yeah, and also maybe they can appreciate the metaphor, right?
And at the very least, I assume you might have changed a few people, colleagues around them, and that's going to affect them further down the line, perhaps, even if they don't get hit on the first day with it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So there's another question here. Adults seem to always need an excuse to play. Besides ritualizing things, what are some other ways to incorporate play into their daily lives? Or I guess magic as well.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, you it's kind of like everyone has touched on this a little bit, right? You have to remove the fear a little bit, which you maybe have to start very small with, just deciding that you will play. So there's a collaborator that we work with called Chu Dehan, and she would say just to go out into the world and experience things, like go out and hug the tree, play Tig, and really kind of enjoy the moment. But you have to like let go a little bit of the fear, and also practice it as if it's a thing. As if, you know, we're talking about creativity, you got to practice letting go of these things. With, if you want to just be playful, you almost have to practice as an adult getting back into that state of mind to just choose like one thing that you're going to do and let yourself be a bit free.
Nice. Practice letting go sounds like a good thing to do. Excellent. Okay, well, I think that takes us to about time there. Thank you guys both so much. It was really great having you on and hearing about the Abracademy and, you know, learning a little bit of magic. I look forward to trying that out on my boy later on.
Yeah, it'd be good to hear how it goes.
So I'm just going to do a bit of wrap up now. Thank you so much to our brilliant speakers, to Dominic, to Ben, Katie and Alex, of course. And yeah, definitely made me want to be more playful, and hopefully yourselves too. Yeah, and it kind of sounds like maybe if we can use some magic, like Katie and Alex do, to create a sense of wonder and put ourselves in this childlike state, and maybe we can create some fantastic inventions like Dominic, and we can stay playful and explore in our increasingly virtual world, as Ben was illustrating as well. So I should say thank you to our Pi People team at Frog, which is Kim, Rob, and Jen. And those jobs again are here on screen if you'd like to join us. We are looking for product designers, service designers, product management people, engagement managers, senior program managers, head of consumer strategy, senior strategy associates, copywriters, motion designers. Lots of jobs to go at, and they'll all be up on the Capgemini website. Again, I think the links to those should either be in the chat previously or they'll be coming up again shortly. And as I say, get in touch on LinkedIn if with someone that you might know or someone in the company, and then they can point you in the right direction if you can't find what you're looking for. Thanks so much and have a great rest of your evening.